Well, thank you all for joining and welcome to our August microlearning. Really excited to have you with us as we talk about student-led businesses. We may have some additional people join throughout, and that's just fine. We are recording this, so we'll have this on our website. Anyone will be able to go back and watch anything they may have missed. But really excited to have you here. Going to go ahead and just introduce our team. My name's Aaron Yoder. I've been at Ascend for just about 4 years. I'm the Senior Manager of Workforce Strategies. And I'm joined on the call today by my colleagues Destiny Lushka and Christy Lynn. If you have any questions today about our microlearning or about previous microlearnings or really any way that our team can support you, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us. Also, if you have questions throughout today, feel free to drop those in the chat, and our team will keep an eye on that and make sure we can respond to as many of those questions as possible. So today, we're going to highlight student-led businesses, kind of define them and walk through why they're uniquely valuable as work-based learning experiences. We're also going to introduce our Student-Led Business Toolkit, which is really a step-by-step guide in implementing and developing student-led businesses. And then after that, we'll wrap up just with some other opportunities to engage in this space and that we can help support you as you implement student-led businesses in your schools and communities. So that's kind of our plan for today. So to start out, what is a student-led business? When we look at the Indiana Department of Education's menu of work-based learning experiences, we're really focused on those top three experiences. So school-based enterprise, workplace simulation, and student entrepreneurial experience. So they have several common threads, which have kind of had us group them as student-led businesses. So a school-based enterprise, that first one is a student-run business. It operates inside the school, and they're selling goods or services to actual customers. So functioning really as a real business inside the school. A workplace simulation can look very similar to a school-based enterprise. The main difference here is that it doesn't have to operate as a full business. So it can, focus on specific elements of it. But students still have to interact with customers. But that could be, real customers or like simulated or mock customers. And so you'll see a lot of similarities between the two, but there is that one distinction that kind of breaks it into the two groups. And then finally, we have student entrepreneurial experience. So this is of the three, this is the most unique experience. If you look at the first two, those are really operating, even as students are leading and operating them, they're essentially owned by the school. And for this third experience, this is more like a student is starting their own business, and so they are owning it themselves and operating and leading it. So the school obviously still wants to come around, support those students through mentorship, aligning curriculum, providing relevant curriculum for that student and their experience, and additional support structures. But that one difference is that it's really owned by the student themselves. There's a number of commonalities throughout each of these three types of work-based learning, but I want to focus really on the main one, which is that these experiences all take place. They bring that real-world experience into the school building itself. So they all take place on school grounds. When we think about creating, more work-based learning experiences for students, oftentimes, we think about barriers to that. Usually at the top of the list is transportation. How do we get a student to an experience and back to school from an experience. And so by nature of these being housed, and these experiences taking place on school grounds, it really removes that barrier of transportation and increases access to work-based learning for students who otherwise, would not be able to participate. And so that's a huge advantage of these student-led businesses. In addition to that, when you think about other types of work-based learning, say like an internship or an apprenticeship, employers often want those students on site for a meaningful amount of time. Just not like 30 minutes isn't, going to be enough time for them to really have that meaningful experience, let's say. And so when you factor in transportation, maybe 30 minutes to the experience with the employer on site, even, an hour there, 30 minutes back, students really have to have a lot more flexibility in their schedule to be able to accommodate that experience. And so it can oftentimes only be accessible to students who have half a day open and, in part of their schedule. With a lot of student-led businesses, they take place over just one, maybe two class periods. So again, it's increasing access, allowing a lot more students, even those who have, pretty full schedules, to still be able to participate in work-based learning. A third benefit of these experiences is a low barrier employer engagement. I imagine as a lot of you engage with employers in work-based learning, maybe bringing that, opportunity to them. A lot of employers are maybe intimidated about what that means, to work with high school students. A lot of them, say they just don't have capacity, whether that's financially or just time. They can't dedicate a supervisor, perhaps for even like 10 hours a week, to be able to support in that space. And so with student-led businesses, that employer engagement piece is still critical, just as it is for all 11 types of work-based learning. But there's a much lower barrier and there's a kind of a bigger variety of what that engagement can look like for employers. So it could be, maybe they can't dedicate 10 hours of, staff time to supervise and train students, but they can, have a staff member come in 1 hour a week, provide things like mentorship, making sure that the business practices are the same as real industry standards and aligned to that. And so there's a lot more opportunity for employers to get involved. I also, one of the things that we're excited about with these is that it can open the door to other work-based learning opportunities. If you have an employer who's saying, well, I don't know what it's like to work with high school students, I don't really want to do that, but yeah, I could come in for an hour a week, and provide some mentorship, do some quality control, things like that. They start to actually see, what the high schoolers are capable of, what the students, the great work that they're doing. And we've seen, student-led businesses where employers come in to help play a role, support, mentorship, and then they say, we want to hire that student as an intern or an apprentice, and we want to build them into our talent pipeline. So it can open the doors to more of those maybe higher engagement experiences, but at the same time, you're still getting that high quality and getting employers in the door. And finally, we have financial sustainability. As we have done research and surveys and interviews with a lot of student-led businesses throughout Indiana, almost all of them said that once they initially got started, maybe they had a little funding and a variety of ways to get their student-led business launched and off the ground. Once that happened, the business itself became self-sustaining. So the revenue they made on that business went back into it, allowed them to serve more customers, more clients, but also provide more opportunities to students. As the business grows, more students are able to, engage in it and participate in it. So it's another value add to these student-led businesses. Finally, just want to touch on a few kind of key pillars of high quality student-led businesses. So the first one is in the name. It's student-led. It's really essential for in these experiences that students are, operating, they're taking ownership, leading the business. In some cases, schools have actually designated a C-suite of students. So oftentimes they'll have, seniors who have been a part of the business for a while. They'll step into, a CEO role or a COO role, and they'll have a team that really takes leadership of the business. They'll also, train new students. They'll go through the interview process with new students, just like any other business would. And so it's really essential for students to be leading the way. Sometimes this means they'll make mistakes, they'll fail at something, but that's all part of the learning process for them to have that ownership, learn from it, and build on it. Second, as we've already talked about, industry engagement. Again, that sustained interaction with an industry professional is a requirement for any type of work-based learning. But there's going to be a wide variety of ways that can look like for a student-led business. One of our high quality student-led business examples, they have their students operating an agriculture business. And so they have all kinds of different partners from that industry coming in to provide support, mentorship, again, reinforcing those real industry standards. But they also welcomed in a representative from their local credit union to talk through the finances of the business and maybe some of the unique challenges of finances in an agriculture business. So, a lot of ways to be creative in that industry engagement piece. Third is meaningful outcomes, ensuring that students are earning academic credit, that this is leading to, a diploma seal or an industry credential to really help students demonstrate what they've learned. And then finally, curriculum alignment. We found that a lot of the schools with these programs, there's a lot more success in the long term if they tie their program to kind of integrating it into existing schools instructional model. So being able to tie this to curriculum within kind of the existing structure really helps it to be sustainable. And the way that really happens is, sometimes schools will have an educator or teacher who's really passionate about this, and that's wonderful. It's really good to have that and to support that, and it's kind of like those all-star teachers are leading the way. But for whatever reason, they may retire or transition to another role. And so when you have this tied into the existing curriculum and the existing structure, it enables it to, kind of continue thriving despite any of those transitions. And the same thing with, like support from administrators. You may have a superintendent or principal who's, a huge supporter of the program. But if it's just kind of its own one-off thing, if that person were to transition to a different role or retire or any kind of transition like that, it's really helpful to have it already embedded in the curriculum so that as new leaders come on, you're able to, effectively, show them and demonstrate why it's a valuable program. So I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions so far on, what is a student-led business, kind of what are the key markers of it, and some of the value behind it. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll just take a moment for that. Alrighty, not seeing any right now. Again, if any come up, feel free to add them there. Uh, Ascend really stepped into the space because the big question that many of you are asking and many people throughout the state is how do I create accessible, high quality work-based learning experiences for more students? And so it's a pressing and urgent question, and it's one that many people are asking. And we really see student-led businesses as a key area and a key answer to this question in both the short and long term. So we have stepped into the space in a number of ways, and one of those is through our Student-Led Business Toolkit. So this toolkit is housed on a broader student-led business webpage on our website. So I'm going to pull it up and just walk through a couple quick things before we jump into the toolkit. On this page, you'll see a lot of what we've already gone over today, that kind of defining what is a student-led business. We also have a section of those benefits for different audiences. So here you can see the benefits for students, but then you'll also see benefits for schools and employers. So if you're speaking with an administrator or an employer, potential employer partner, and wanting to engage them in this space, there could be some good talking points you could pull from these sections to be able to say, hey, this is why it'd be valuable for you to be engaged. We have a couple resources here I'll come back on. Just want to scroll past these quick and show you. There are some great case studies of some of the leaders in the space across Indiana. So as we talked about those different types of student-led businesses, we have workplace simulation, school-based enterprise, student entrepreneurial experience. So really encourage you to check these out. I think one of the best ways to learn about these is seeing how other schools are actually approaching them. And so really encourage you to check those out on our website. And up here in the resources, we have a case for student-led businesses. I'll touch on that a bit later, but we're going to dive into the Student-Led Business Toolkit. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Christy Lynn, who's going to give us an overview of the toolkit.
Hi, everyone. So when we started started talking to a lot of schools that were interested in potentially standing up a student-led business, one of the big things that came up is, well, how do we do this? How do we start this? Where do we begin? What do I need? So that's when Ascend really kind of stepped in and said, hey, let's create this toolkit so that we could, help the student or help the schools that are interested in doing this by giving them a way to kind of track their progress and to make sure that they have everything that they need to stand it up. So we partnered, Aaron, you can flip. So we partnered with the Indian Creek School, Perry Central, Career Academy, and Lincoln High School, who all four of those schools have really good student-led businesses. They're all very different in the way that they do things. So if you're curious, each one of them, with the schools, if you're interested in who the contact is, I'm sure that they would love to help you if you're looking to potentially stand up a new student-led business. And then, of course, our regional opportunity initiatives that they kind of help the southern area build student-led businesses down that way. So that's kind of where we use to reference who could help out. So you'll see in our table of contents, we have 5 different sections. We have explore, assess readiness, design, build and launch, refine and enhance, and then we have the appendix. So the cool thing about this is, like, maybe you already have started a student-led business, but yet you need to, refine it. So you could jump right into section 5. If you don't have any idea of who, what, when, where, why, as to how to create one, then you can start all the way and explore. So again, that's the nice thing about this, is that you don't have to follow each section. You can go into each section separately, depending on where you are in the process. So we have our first phase is explore. And in this phase, it's really talking about, why do you want to do this? What is it about your school that you've wanted to figure out to do this? You explore, is it feasible for your school? Is it something that you already have an item or a product that you think you can sell? Is it, do we have the resources? Do we have the teachers? It also tells you, okay, here's how many hours for your diploma seals and whatnot. So this is really just that. It's exploring what's involved, where's the support, and then, using this toolkit. So that's what that first section is. So the second section, so now you've decided that you're interested. You've explored it, you've researched it. Now you're ready to start. So let's assess it. So basically, one of the first things you're going to do, and just kind of tell you a little story about, there's a school that they were trying to figure out. They're really out in the country. They were trying to figure out what would be the best opportunity for them in their area. They said, hey, we don't have a donut shop in our little town. So that's what they did, is they said, okay, we found out that that's the idea that we want to do, that we want to start this up because we don't have a donut shop. So that's really where you're looking at as far as, using this particular checklist in this phase is, you can look and see, do you have the space? Do you have, any money for startup? Do you have already, resources within the school or employers that you're working with? So again, just kind of that check off of, we're going to assess that we're ready to do this. And that's what this toolkit is for you to kind of go down and answer all the questions to see where you might be missing something, because you don't want to just say, hey, let's start this business, start it, and then you realize that you don't have a lot of stuff that you need. The next phase is the design phase. So this area is where you're really going to get kind of into the nitty-gritty of creating the student-led business. So, you're going to make sure that you have kind of all your ducks in a row, that you've got that business plan, you've started those employer partnerships, you know that it aligns with the curriculum and the requirements, that you're legally in compliance. So if you're doing food, you might have to have safety permits from the state. So you want to make sure that you're completely compliant and that you're running a business that's safe, and that it's something that, like Aaron said before, that it is something that you can continuously make money. Um, so you just really want to ensure that you have that design in place. And then, of course, your fourth one is build and launch. So again, that's specifically what it says. You've built it, now you're going to launch it. So this checklist, you go through everything to make sure, okay, do the students know what they're doing? Have they received training, that we're in compliance? One of the big things too about this is that you want to make sure that you have your approvals from all of your administrators. So again, that's definitely something that you just go through this and make sure that you're ready to build it and launch it. And then phase 5, you go into that refine and enhance. So this is basically once you've opened your business, you've had it open for a few weeks, you can kind of go back and you can look at it and you can see, okay, how are things running? Are we making a profit? How can we make things better? What's gone right in the last couple of weeks? What's gone wrong? What do we think that we can see differently? So that's what this checklist is for, is to go through and be able to see, okay, here's where we're really strong. Here's where we're not as strong. Maybe you didn't think about that. So this really just helps you um, go back and look and see how things are going. And things you may not, thought about prior to opening this business. And then here at the end, we have the additional tools that you can use during each phase. There are links. You can't really tell on this screen, but there are links to each of the different sections. And it might be a checklist. It might be a worksheet. It may be something that you can go in and kind of work through. That's additional help to you actually launching your actual business. I could talk about this all day because I love student-led businesses and but if there's questions about the toolkit, about other resources, please feel free to reach out. If we don't know the answer, we usually find a student-led business that does have the answers. We're just really happy that we were able to create this document to be able to help those of you out there that may want to start a student-led business. So now I'll turn it back over to Aaron.
Great. So yeah, that toolkit is on the website. So the link that Destiny shared in the chat, just scroll about halfway down and you'll be able to access that toolkit anytime. And as Christy said, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Happy to help support or connect you to people who can yeah, share more about their experience in student-led businesses. So as we wrap up, just want to highlight a few more opportunities to stay engaged in this space and some upcoming resources we'll be able to provide. So first, if you haven't already, definitely encourage you to follow Ascend on LinkedIn, subscribe to our newsletter. As we roll out new opportunities, new resources, this is going to be the place you'll find them. So really encourage you to sign up for those. And then you may have seen this, I noted on the website, just next to the toolkit, we have our case for student-led businesses. And this is really a combination of more of a deep dive research and case studies throughout of student-led businesses throughout Indiana. A great way, especially if you're having more of those intentional conversations about, hey, we want to start this up. Who are the partners that need to be involved? This can be a great resource to reference. So definitely encourage you to check that out on our website as well. And again, those case studies are really valuable to see some of those partners and schools that are doing this and have been doing this really well. And then really excited to invite all of you to our Indiana Student-Led Business Exchange. So this is a convening of educators, intermediaries, employers, and others who are interested in student-led businesses and understanding how to engage in this spot. So it's going to be a really full day. We'll have breakout presenters who are thought leaders and experts. You'll be able to kind of pick which ones you'd like to go to based on your interest. Our assistant secretary of education, Paul Ketchum, will be leading a keynote at the event. And then we'll also have students from Owen Valley High School who will be showcasing Patriot Manufacturing, which is their student-led business. Another great example of the work in this space. So again, a full day, a lot of opportunities to connect with others, and it's a free event. It'll be Tuesday, September 22nd in Kokomo, Indiana. And we'll be at the Kokomo Conference Center, which is a brand new venue. So really encourage you to register for that and let us know if you have any questions. And I see a question in the chat here. Yeah, so the toolkit is relatively new. Sorry, the question here is, as an after-school org, are there any other organizations like that in Indiana that have used the toolkit successfully? So we've really, the toolkit is, I'd say, relatively new. We launched it just at our last convening in May. And so I think we have a number of partners, that have it and have been introduced to it. But yeah, I think it's still something that is being rolled out, including why we're introducing it today. But I do know there are, partners. Out like after school partners who do help support student-led business programs, and so would be happy to connect you to them as well. And that'll also be, I think, part of the convening on September 22nd. We'll be able to highlight and connect with a lot of people who are already in this space, as well as those who are just stepping into it for the first time. Thanks for the question. And yeah, Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you do have any other questions or want to connect with us, don't hesitate to reach out to Destiny, myself, or Christy. We'd be happy to engage with you further in this space. So, yeah, thanks so much. Hope to see you in September. And in the meantime, have a great rest of your day.